Star Wars is one of those franchises that I've always loved. It's a big, magnificent series that I've always loved since I was a kid, especially since I originally saw the original trilogy when I was about 8 years old on TV, and from there I loved it since. But it feels like Disney ruined something that was special to everybody, especially with the most recent releases like The Acolyte that bombed horribly because they don't understand what George Lucas envisioned for Star Wars. I've always been a big fan of Star Wars. I don't really talk about it on this channel that much because of how much Disney ruined Star Wars. There's a few projects that Disney did right, like Rogue One, the Darth Vader comics, A Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. I enjoyed Rebels as well. I enjoyed a couple projects here and there, but most of Disney Star Wars has been a failure. And I'm talking about this now because it's been over 10 years that the sequel trilogy started in theaters with The Force Awakens, and Star Wars has been a disaster ever since. I don't know, I feel like Disney mismanaged Star Wars so bad that it pretty much destroyed the brand for a lot of people. I used to love watching Star Wars, especially Episode 3. Episode 3, one of my top favorites of all time. I know all the dialogue for that movie.
Another happy landing.
As a kid, you were always into the lightsaber fights, getting all the collectibles, the Lego stuff, Clone Wars, the animated series. I mean, there was just a lot of cool things at Star Wars growing up as a kid, especially in the early 2000s. But now, it feels like Disney tarnished the Star Wars brand, or the Star Wars name, it's so much that no one cares about it anymore. And many fans have taken upon themselves to create better fan films that actually feel like Star Wars compared to what Disney has released. And it's just crazy how mismanaged Disney is. I'm really hoping they get rid of like Kathleen Kennedy. That's one thing that most of the fans can agree that getting rid of her, she needs to go. But it's just crazy who's gonna take over. I just feel Disney in general just shouldn't even have the rights to Star Wars. Like, if you learn the truth of how Star Wars was sold to Disney, it was actually HBO that was supposed to get the original rights to Star Wars, which is kind of crazy. But there's just so much chaos behind the scenes that the stories that Disney Star Wars pushes aren't what George Lucas would have done. I hate that a lot of people have to basically create their own head canon of what is canon, because the Disney canon just completely sucks. They say they don't have enough source material to create original materials when they've had the Legends universe forever. I love Star Wars, from the silliness of the prequels, like, with Jar Jar Binks, all the way to Episode 6, perfection. Yeah, Disney created, Rogue One. Rogue One actually fits very well into the timeline, but I feel like that's the only good Disney film that they gave us. The sequels absolutely disrespect everything. And if you even learn about how the sequels came to be, you just learn that they were making things on the go. They didn't really have a cohesive plan. Disney just made the films to gain money and cash, which is so obvious now. The way Disney fumbled Star Wars was so bad that many people canceled their Disney Plus subscription, including me. I just couldn't take it anymore. Everything has been like super garbage. The Book of Boba Fett was bad. Even Ahsoka wasn't as good. The Acolyte was just a complete disaster. I feel bad for Skeleton Crew. I personally didn't see it myself because I had already canceled Disney Plus by that point. I just checked out. And I know a lot of fans are in the same place, like me, where they just completely checked out of the series entirely. Like, I used to love reading the comics. I used to love reading Star Wars books. Heck, I used to replay Star Wars Revenge of the Sith like 10 times in a row. That's how good it was to me. Especially as a kid. I had that movie on blast on DVD. But I don't know. Feels like Disney mismanaged everything. The Star Wars sequels that they made, they could have easily done a lot of good things. The way they mistreated John Boyega was just one of the things I hated. Like, they set him up to be like Force sensitive. That was an interesting plotline for me. I was hoping they would expand upon that in the sequels, but they never did. They just turned him into a person that keeps shouting, "Rey! Rey! Rey!" The lightsaber combat doesn't even feel good. No one dies if they get stabbed by lightsabers, which is insane. That's one of my biggest criticisms and hate for both Ahsoka and for the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show. The fact that people got stabbed by a lightsaber and didn't die or had consequences was just so plain stupid. That doesn't make sense considering how many Jedi died when Order 66 was done by Anakin and the 501st Legion. It's just crazy how much Star Wars has been mishandled by Disney. I love Star Wars, but now it's just like, it's an afterthought, which is a shame, because I feel like Star Wars still has so much potential and so much stories, but unfortunately Star Wars is not being handled by fans or people that are very passionate about Star Wars. It's being managed by people who don't understand Star Wars, or they're just lazy producers who just want the extra money and tell their own version of Star Wars that has nothing to do with George Lucas. And I just feel like there's no point of Star Wars basically existing with, at least in Disney's hands. I don't see any future where they can recover, at least currently, especially with the leadership they have in Disney, especially in Lucasfilm. Disney has no future with Star Wars. Not unless they do some drastic changes and put some leadership in there. I personally would like to see Jon Favreau take over Kathleen Kennedy's position, because if they keep going the way they're going right now, it's gonna bomb. Like the fact they're even gonna make a Rey movie, which honestly I'm probably not even gonna watch. The fact that they're just making so many projects that no one has any interest in it, and then they keep putting these agendas to push certain things to people that have nothing to do with Star Wars. Like Star Wars is already diverse enough as it is, and there's no reason to put hidden woke agendas, as they call it. But it's just crazy how much Disney just mishandled Star Wars. Like, it's been 10 years since the sequel started, and it feels like the real Star Wars fans are either standing up to Disney and being silenced, or they just checked out. I love Star Wars. I keep up with it, with Star Wars channels like Star Wars Theory and Stupendous Wave and some others out there that are actually creating true Star Wars that aligns with the way George Lucas handled Star Wars. And it's a shame that fans have more imagination and creativity than freaking Disney, who has millions of dollars to their name and of assets and production value that they could use to actually create a good Star Wars film, but they just create a bunch of slop, and it's just been downhill. I feel like Disney's just been mismanaging not just Star Wars, they've also mismanaged Marvel. I feel like just the whole company of Disney just needs a whole restructuring. And we'll see what happens with Star Wars, but I really hope that we get good films, but I'm honestly not excited about Star Wars. Like, any new movie or project that they announce, I'm like, I don't really care to watch it. And it's kind of sad and disheartening how much Star Wars has been tarnished as a brand. I just don't feel connected to it. Like, I really love episodes 1 through 6. The story, the connections, they made sense. But after that, it's just been an afterthought. Like, Disney's had, a couple hits like Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, Clone Wars and Rebels, but that's about it. Like, everything else has pretty much been trash. There's very, very few good hit series. Like, if Disney ever wants Star Wars to actually becoming more profitable again, they're gonna have to hit banger after banger after banger. They're gonna have to basically do what the MCU did for Marvel for phases 1 to 3. We don't talk about the multiverse saga because that sucks. But they need to restructure and actually put people that are passionate about Star Wars in charge of Star Wars projects. Because it feels like Kathleen Kennedy is just handing Star Wars to whatever director and to create their own story, but none of the stories actually fit into what George Lucas envisioned. And I'm still freaking angry at the way that they treated George Lucas with all the scripts that he gave them for his ideas of the sequels, and they just plain out ignored it, which is crazy. And I know he probably regrets selling Star Wars to Disney, at least. I understand why he had to sell it, but the way Disney just mismanaged everything, I'm just so angry. I used to love Star Wars. Star Wars was my favorite thing. Being in the Millennium Falcon was a dream of mine, or having my own spaceship, or playing the old Star Wars games like Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, the original Star Wars Battlefronts. Those were epic, but I don't know. It just feels like there's no future for Star Wars. At least currently, the way it's structured, there's no future for Star Wars. And it's a shame how much Disney burned everything to the ground. I really hope Star Wars comes back, but I have no confidence in Disney to handle Star Wars anymore. That's why I personally canceled Disney Plus. They burned Marvel and they burned Star Wars to the ground. And they really, if they want to recover everything, they're gonna have to create fire. But I find it unlikely, at least with the current leadership. I find it unlikely that Lucasfilm and Star Wars are gonna create something magical, because that feeling of magic that Star Wars used to have, especially when you were a kid, even as an adult, you still felt that magic through Star Wars episodes 1 through 6. But with Disney Star Wars, you don't feel anything. I'm not asking much, but at this point, I'm just watching fan projects more, or fan films, I should say, that are way better in production value than Disney. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the state of Star Wars. Star Wars is not in good hands right now. I feel like if nothing is done and only the fans are keeping it alive, Star Wars as a brand is going to dissolve. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars projects, Star Wars fan films, and other projects that fans make, but Disney's got to step up their game. The High Republic era that they were going for completely failed. All these political agendas they started inserting into modern Disney Star Wars, it just has it doesn't make sense, because, you know, Star Wars is already diverse. I wish they would make shows more about, like, you know, the aliens. There's a lot of stuff that they could bring from the expanded universe. But at this point, I'm like, do I even want them to touch stuff like that? Do I want them to, you know, touch the old Republic? Hell no. At this point, I don't trust them for anything. I really don't trust Disney at all. I feel like everything has just been sucky. Yeah, they've had the, you know, the few hits, but they're missing too much. They need to make a lot of bangers back to back and something cohesive. I've had this problem like with them for like a long time, and yeah, I don't know. But what are you guys' thoughts on the condition of Star Wars as a brand? Like, do you feel it's too far gone to save, or do you feel that there's still hope, or do you think Disney should sell it? I personally think that they should sell it. I don't think Disney has any rights to continue Star Wars. I think they should completely eliminate the sequels, because they suck. There's no cohesiveness. It's just so random. Like, I wish they would just, you know, continue on from Star Wars Episode 6. Just completely retcon or get rid of the sequels. And, like, there's some projects that work well within George Lucas, but there's other ones that just don't. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm still hoping that one day Star Wars could make a comeback, but at this point, the way the leadership is, I have no hope in them. But yeah, let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. And if you guys are new here, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. That really does help the channel. Appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. Peace.